This segment of Long Island Talks on LongIsland.com is brought to you by Bagel of the Month Club, powered by Bagel Boss. We're back at it here on LongIsland.com, Long Island Talks, continuing our talks with chefs in a pandemic. And really what this series is about is talking to chefs that were going, and doing what they do best and making a lot of people happy. And then boom, 5 weeks ago, 6 weeks ago now, their lives are changed. And we've talked to health workers, and now we're shifting our attention over to some of the awesome chefs on Long Island. So, Stefan Bogardus, how are you?
Pretty great. Thank you so much for having me on today, Kevin.
You're absolutely welcome. You know, I like to rename this series like "What the fuck happened" is where we're going with this. You know, and in your words, how has your life changed professionally? First of all, how are you personally?
We're pretty good. My wife and I, my wife is a psychologist finishing up her PhD. She's defending her dissertation, which is going to have to happen via Zoom, not in person. But she's working with the VA in Northport, so she was able to shift over to mental health. So she's still able to connect with her patients, which is great.
That is great.
For me, we tried to keep the team going as long as we could at the restaurant and the hotel, but unfortunately, as demand and government regulations came into play, it became less of a viable opportunity. We looked at the to-go model and delivery, which worked well for about 3 weeks from initially when we found out about the changes that were happening. But the break-even point on liquidating inventory was far closer than that if we were to buy goods and then resell it. So once we worked through our inventory of perishables and things that we weren't able to preserve or hold off for later reopening, we pulled the plug. And it was kind of just at the time when things really started getting bad around the third week of March. So it actually worked out quite well for us. And then unfortunately, pretty much all the staff was furloughed, including top line management,
Sure.
everybody.
Yeah, it's unprecedented. And I think sometimes making those tough decisions when you look back are going to be better decisions. They certainly are better decisions, because dragging it on and going into super bad places, both mentally and draining financially, is not good for anybody. And in some cases, as you know, unemployment is helping people more so than when they were working. Be it fair or not fair, that's reality. I know that.
Whatever could be done to keep the property viable. I think that there's lots of different models for what's successful, but making sure that business owners, chefs, restaurateurs, whoever it is really doing what's right for the company now and in the future.
We should actually mention that you're the executive chef at the Halyard in Greenport. We previously didn't mention that, and you've been a chef throughout the East End for a long time. Let's just jump back in time for a second, because I know you went to the West Coast, and I never really got the story on that, and I wanted to hear just a little bit of what you did out there for a little while.
Yeah, so in my time between the North Fork table and coming to the Halyard, I wasn't sure of what was going on. And originally, I was in talks with buying North Fork table, and it looked like we were going to be going through renovations for a period of time. So I was lucky enough. I worked at Per Se in New York for Thomas Keller for a little while. And this was like 2009. It was a really long time ago. And the chef de cuisine there, my wife got me a phenomenal 30th birthday gift. We went out to the West Coast. We had dinner at French Laundry and at Manresa by David Kinch. And while we were on a kitchen tour at the French Laundry, I saw the old chef de cuisine from Per Se out there. We recognized each other. He asked me what I was up to, blah, 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 and offered me an opportunity to go hang out in the French Laundry kitchen.
Oh my God.
Which was really great. So I took the opportunity. I spent 10 days out there in the kitchen, and they offered me an opportunity, and it just wasn't viable with my wife being over here and whatnot to stay there long term. But it was awesome, and it was so good to be able to get in there and to cook. And Thomas was actually in kitchen a couple of the nights while I was there, so that was really amazing.
Yeah, got to check that one off. That is just completely awesome. I'm so glad I asked, because I didn't know, I saw that you were out there. I was like, wow, that's unbelievable. Will we ever see you again? I'm so glad you're back too, as well.
Yeah.
So what are you doing personally now? I know you love motorcycles. I guess you love to go fast, because I asked the question, what would you do if you weren't a chef? You want to be a Formula One race driver. And that's really cool that you answered that. You love the need for speed?
I do. I like it a lot, and one of the cool, like, I like numbers and how that makes your brain work, and specifically like operating a vehicle at speed and safely on a racetrack, like the negotiations that you have to do about the timing and the speed going into corners and such. I think it's really, really, really amazing, and it's cool, and they really are like businesses too. So Formula One, I think, could be really interesting in a different life or a different world or
Mhm.
whatever. I could see it totally working.
Well,
But personally, right now, luckily, I'm helping my brother-in-law out a little bit on the vineyard. He's doing some delivery routes. Giovanni Borghese at Castello de Borghese Vineyards here in Cutchogue. Um, he's delivering wine all across the East Coast. He's done Boston, Connecticut, Philadelphia, where people are calling and placing orders, and then he's offering free delivery. So I've helped him out a little bit on the property with loading the truck and just organizing orders and things like that. We are still cooking a lot at home. We're doing Instagram Live with the Halyard Greenport and the Soundview Greenport Instagram hashtags. And I'm exercising daily. I'm a big exercising buff. My wife and I go on walks all the time,
awesome.
lifting weights, doing yoga, getting outside. But luckily, because we do live on a vineyard where my wife and her brother own it, we have the opportunity where we have some good space, so we're able to spend some time outside and not be in contact with too many people. So we are pretty strictly adhering to the quarantine.
I call this crisis just from the perspective of staying home. It's like the snowstorm that has never ended. And, you do want to find a silver lining in things. And I have to tell you, I'm doing things that I'm usually go, 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 but I'm doing those walks. I'm exercising more than ever. I mean, what's going on? I mean, that's a really good positive thing for people. And I hope that's coming out with most people. Because if you're working to afford to live on Long Island, you're not able to enjoy these things. So that is a big bonus plus, I think, on this whole thing.
I think this has been a really great opportunity. It's kind of forced a bit of a slowdown, and it's a place that people don't always like to go, is inside and internally, and trying to figure out what your needs are and how to convey them to the world and meet them for yourself. It's been a great opportunity where people have had that time that forces us to do a little bit of that introspection and to really focus where we're putting our energy outside in the world and in our own beings and how to best navigate this moving forward. So hopefully, I mean, it's a quintessential springtime of regrowth and focus moving
Yeah,
forward.
it matches. Just want to move a little bit to local farming, local, if you will, provisions that you are involved with both personally and at the restaurant, and how that would be affected, if at all, during this time. But what do you like to do with local provisioning for what you cook?
So personally, I I eat huge bowls of salad every day with vegetables and then some kind of small sustainable protein, whether it's like I love canned sardines, like really good
So
sardines.
do I. Now, a
Um,
lot of people do not. I love sardines.
Costco, they sell a great boneless, skinless sardine. They're
Oh my
sustainable.
God.
They're packed in olive oil. It's a great price. It's an awesome package. But like eggs, now thankfully seafood shops are still open, so you can get things like scallops. But I make a big salad, usually with olive oil and some kind of vinegar, with a little bit of salt, whatever vegetables we can get, and then some little bit of protein, maybe some like wild rice or bulgur or something. And that's what we eat. So there's a biodynamic farm ran by Ira Haspel right here in Southold. It's called KK's The Farm. I buy a ton of produce from him in the summertime, and I personally purchase a lot of lettuce from him because it's what I eat. Since I think in 3 weeks we've gone through 9 pounds of lettuce just between Allegra and I, and that's a lot of lettuce, let me tell you. But I mean, we just have big
Wow.
handfuls of lettuce in a big bowl, and we put whatever we want in there. I put hot sauce on it, and
Are you a vegetarian, or are you eating actual meat as well?
no, I am also an avid bow hunter, so I have quite a lot of venison that I've been working through with my freezer, and we buy some fish and things like that.
Yep.
I think that we should be eating smaller things, so things like sardines and eggs. Like we shouldn't be focused on that big, like meat
Lasagna.
and
Yeah.
tuna and like the really big proteins that take a long time to produce. I think as a culture, we should eat smaller things more frequently, like sardines and eggs and that kind of sustainable stuff. But also thinking about asparagus season, peas. I've done a lot of gardening, So I have some sugar snap peas that have germinated, and we have a lot of baby lettuces that we're growing. We have some English peas and green beans and cucumbers and some cantaloupe melon. So I have a little bit of a green thumb, though it does take a lot of focus and attention that
It
I usually
does.
don't have at this time of year.
Yeah. Wow, that's really inspiring. That's fantastic. I love that. What can be grown right now? Because again, when we're home, can just about anything, tomatoes, is everything ready to go put in the ground now? Or are we
So
just a little early on a couple of
I
things?
think it's a little early on a
Yeah.
lot of things, but lettuces, like especially I like really like spicy mustard lettuce greens.
Hmm.
Um, and they usually sell some kind of like spicy mix or something along those lines. You could buy it at any like garden store. You just get some seeds and some good potting soil or something. Find a little area of dirt, sprinkle the seeds, and then cover it with the potting mix and let it go 2-3 weeks. And before you know it, you'll have dinner ready to go.
Before you know it, you'll be going through 9 pounds a week like you. That's a goal. Any other positive energy you want to throw out to the universe here today with us?
I've been sober for 7.5 years. I had a problem
Congratulations.
with alcohol for a long time, and through that sobriety, it took me about 3 years, but meditation. I mean, it is, from a scientific standpoint, it is life changing for what it can do to your brain and your energy and that flow. And having the opportunity to slow down a little bit and I meditate daily, even if it's just for 3 to 5 minutes, and ultimately building up to whatever works for you. I try to sit for about 15 to 20 minutes in the morning, and then hopefully again at nighttime, another 15 or 20 minutes. And having that opportunity to process your thoughts and again, focus the energy and where you're putting it out. And kind of like just slow down a little bit and organize yourself and your thoughts. Meditation is a huge part of who I am, and it helps me to be a great leader and a member of the community.
My family's laughing at me because they're like, "Why are you coming in here and talking to people on a screen?" You know, that kind of a thing. But that's what makes me happy, and I hope you didn't think I was coming off like, very aggressively. But it helps me to talk to people, and I don't want to go too deep in this, but I want to ask you about alcohol. Was alcohol a symptom of the business you were in, genetics, or just bad habits from teenage years? I have my own story about this. That's why I ask.
It's a great question, and I feel like it changes depending on who you talk to. Like I think that there's kind of like there's that piece of faith where no matter what's going to happen is going to happen, no matter who you are or what you do or whatever. And like ever since a young age, like I always had to we refer to it as like the ism, where you just they say alcohol is but a symptom of the disease, and that there's lots of ways for it to
Hmm.
manifest itself. But it's a compulsion for more ultimately, and I was never really like satisfied with who I was or how I felt, or I didn't feel safe in my own skin. And then I found alcohol, and it washed away all that for so long, and it worked as a great resource for a long time in helping me to feel okay with who I was. But then ultimately, you hit a point where it just stops working, and when it stops working, that's when you're really in trouble because you had something that
You
provided for you
fall.
for so long that's not doing that same thing. But that's where sobriety and spirituality and meditation and self-care can really take over. And I think that I'm a better person today, and I am more who I am because of what I went through with that.
Wow. I didn't think we'd get into the subject, but I love it because I think this is the subject that people need to hear about more of. So I appreciate your honesty in coming out with that. It's fantastic.
For sure.
Really cool.
I think if there's anyone who's struggling with substance abuse or mental instability or health or whatever, there's always resources out there. And I think that it's something that as a culture, people don't talk about as much. And I mean, it's a really, from PTSD and veterans to addiction and substance abuse, like whatever you're struggling with or whoever your loved one's struggling with, there's always resources out there. But one thing that I think is important is if the time is right, there's nothing someone can say that's
Yes.
wrong.
It's got to be
But if
here.
the time is wrong, there's nothing you could say that's right. So I think that like if there is someone in your family who's struggling and it's not the right time for them, like there's not a lot you could do. But when the time is right, no matter what you say, or if you're able to find resources or guide them in the right direction, it's really beneficial.
Great advice. Awesome. But that also answers your affiliation with the Need for Speed, and that you still love that adrenaline, which is part of what we're talking about. because I find that too, that I'm always attracted to things that would be borderline, getting that adrenaline up, if you know what I mean. I love the piece that Newsday came out with when you rode off with your motorcycle. Do you still have the motorcycle? You still take it out?
I still have that one specifically. Yeah, it's a 2013 Ducati Street Fighter 848.
Oh,
I had four different Ducatis. I was engaged to a girl up in Rochester, and I was living up there. We were saving up for a house. My mom was an operating room nurse and always told me no tattoos, no motorcycles. And the girl broke my heart around 2015 on Valentine's Day, and I was kind of like struggling with that, like figure out who I am as an individual and what am I going to do. And I met this girl, and she rode motorcycles. And of course, I was like, oh, well, I rode motorcycles too. So I went out and I bought a Ducati off Craigslist. And the motorcycle lasted way longer than that girl did. And it helped me kind of figure out who I am. And I have had a bunch of different bikes. But this was the first bike that I saw when I started riding. And I was like, man, I would love to have that. But it was a little bit out of my price and experience range. But as I stuck with it and as I kept riding and life changes and whatever, I was able to save up and pull the trigger on like my dream bike. And I love it. But it's been pretty wet and pretty cold out, though I have been able to get out a couple times this year.
Any experience with electric bikes? Because they're just a whole other world now, the way they're making them. I've been looking at
the technology is crazy cool, and
Yeah.
I think that it's going to be completely revolutionary as they debut. And even using some of that hybrid technology that they have on cars, if that's ever able to get worked out in a bike, like I've driven a couple Teslas, and like that electric power delivery,
It's the torque.
mind blowing.
Yeah. The need for speed for sure on that. All right, let's go back to the restaurant. When the restaurant opens, which hopefully will be sooner than later, let's just talk about what makes that restaurant special and what your offerings are, what you love about it. I should describe this as right on the water. It's within a hotel, motel is the proper word,
Hotel.
motel? Okay. What is the hotel called?
Soundview Greenport.
Soundview Greenport. I've stayed there last summer. It was wonderful. What do you like to put across to people there?
So the Soundview is an iconic property from Long Island's North Shore. It's been in operations. Formerly, it was owned by Jack Levin. I believe that it was in the 1940s that he started the property off, built it up by pieces, and now it's a 55-room hotel on a quarter-mile-long private beach looking out on the North Shore of Long Island. We have some phenomenal sunsets.
Yes.
It was renovated and purchased 3 years ago by Eric Warner and Eagle Point Hotel Partners. The food and beverage operation struggled a little bit for the first 2 years there, but myself and the new management team came on last January, and we've been working through it. We've done a lot of changes. We have a really great team of individuals that have poured their heart and soul into it. And my own background, I did contemporary fine dining for a long time. I worked at the Breakers Hotel in Palm Beach, Florida. I was at Danielle Ballud's restaurant Danielle on the Upper East Side. North Fork Table and Inn, obviously, for Claudia Fleming and Jerry Hayden for a long time. But this is the first time that I also ran a country club up in Rochester. That was the first time that I was really in charge of a large operation. But Soundview's big. We have our certificate of occupancy is 255 seats. So we do weddings up to 175. We can do up to around 500 covers for dinner. So it's a very, very, very large operation. And we focus on dedicating really wholesome and nutritious food that's locally sourced when possible and is in the mentality of having refined cuisine, but having it be comfortable and approachable at a great price point. So we're really thoughtful in our approach, but it's really simple. There's no tablecloths. It's just beautiful, warm wooden tables with a very like rustic, casual feel to it. And it's a special place. We also just recently bought Harborfront Inn in Greenport as well on Main Street, looking out on the North Ferry from Greenport. And we are renovating that and putting in a small food and beverage component, which is going to be opening up in June. So
great news.
Kind of expanding our operation, and that's going to be a very like beverage centric kind of nautical like tavern that has a small food component. But I highly recommend, if you've never been there, please come by and check out the Halyard at Soundview Greenport. It's a beautiful place, and hopefully we'll be reopening somewhere around that May 15th time as government regulation permits us.
Yeah, I mean, you do have a great amount of space there too. I honestly, I stayed there by myself. I brought a kayak. I was in one of those rooms. I was at the pool. Then I just took the kayak out. I mean, it's spacious. It's beautiful. I think it's a little bit of a North Fork jewel for sure. Not a little bit, a lot of it. A lot of people don't even know it exists sometimes.
I've been lucky enough to get to go to the south of France and over to Spain for a little while, and it reminds me of that like Southern
Good.
Riviera kind of same like rocky coastline. And just think that it's a really, really, really great place to hang out, and it's kind of like it's a great place for a little staycation, or if you are coming from somewhere like the West Coast or New York City or Pennsylvania, it's a great change of place and a great change of scenery because the vibes in the North Fork is very much like casual but welcoming and friendly.
Yes, I'm so glad because I live in Shoreham and it's not a long drive. When I go out there, I still to this day don't see any neon signs or big established franchise restaurant. It's a good feeling, and I think a lot of people that never visit there don't realize that it stayed that way. The farms, everything. So you're a lucky guy, man. That's really great. So thanks for talking to us today. This has been great. We really appreciate it. Stay well. I hope to visit you as soon as you're open and enjoy what you're putting across out there. Thank you, Stefan. Thank you.
Thanks a lot for your time. Thank you so much, Long Island, and everyone who's listening today. I really appreciate the opportunity to give us a voice and to be able to connect a little bit. And thank you so much for your time, Kevin. I really appreciate it, and keep doing what you're doing, brother.
Thank you.